Okay, so this is going to be Unit 2, Week 1, so Module 1. And I'm going to get started with the Rick and Morty API, since that's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite TV shows. It's probably my favorite API. Anybody who's watched any of my videos previous to this says that pretty much that's all I do is Rick and Morty API. Also, if you guys have any questions, just come off mute and ask away. So you can see we just started with a brand new folder, and nothing is in this. So if I open up VS Code, there's not going to be anything in here. Let me drag this over. And so if I want to make a website, the first thing that I want is an HTML file, right? So I'm going to touch index.html. And that will give us an HTML file here. Let me get rid of the release notes. And if I just hit the exclamation point and tab, that's going to give me a template of an HTML file. I can change out my my title to be Rick and Morty. Save that. And I have an extension installed on this one called Live Server. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow me to open this with Live Server. And if you'll notice, it says port 5500 right here. That's going to be our local host port 5500. So let me see if it opened somewhere. It did not. So I'm just going to have to manually type this in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a new tab. So we've got localhost, which is your own machine. Colon 5500 is the port number that we're on. And now we notice that we have a new web page that says Rick and Morty. I can inspect this. And hopefully I have this large enough that everybody can see it. You can tell that this is kind of the same thing. So we've got our head and our body, and there's not much to it. So our head looks the same. It's got this UAX compatible with IE Edge. You know, if I get rid of that and save it, you'll notice that it automatically refreshed, and we just have the character set that we're using and the viewport title, and it throws in this little little script in here that'll help us refresh, and that's injected from the live server. So this is how we're going to be interacting with the JavaScript file. So if I just make a JavaScript file, you'll see that we just have two files, index.html and index.js. And we'll do like a console log. I guess I didn't hit H. Console log hello world. We can actually run this on the command line by doing node index.js. It'll do the hello world here. So if I want to connect this index.js file to my index.html file and make it run, we need to put that up here in our header. And we're just going to go to the existing folder. So / is the existing folder in index.js. The last thing that I want to do is defer. So this is something that we may or may not have taught you in class. So what this does is this connects my script to the HTML file. This defer means that it runs it at the end of everything. So as soon as it's rendered the page, it will then let you run the script on what's on the page. And that's what allows the DOM manipulation to happen. It says defer. If you don't have the defer, it's not going to happen. Probably not needed in your sprint, but we're doing a project from scratch, so that's how we do that. So now that I have the script in here, if we go and we open up our console, you can see that we've got a hello world output, and I can even change this to hello browser console. There you go. So even if I run it here, it still says hello browser console. So any questions on connecting index.js to your index.html here? Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a div container because I can. And what this is going to do is this is going to be some place for me to start injecting things into my my HTML. So instead of me trying to inject it into body, I'm going to be injecting it into our container here. So that's more of a pattern that we're going to learn next week. And it's something that's generally a good idea. A lot of the times React doesn't like you to try to modify body directly. So a lot of the times you'll have like a div, or, you know, this might be a section, something like that. And that's pretty common. So if I go into our elements here and we look here, you can see that we've got a body with a section of container. So one of the other areas that you know, I might show you is that, for one, we have this this class container. So if I don't ever use this anywhere else, it's a lot easy. It's very easy for me to select this, use this as my selector. And so if we have we'll just make a variable and call it main section, and we're going to equal that to document dot query selector. I'm not worried about a query selector all because I just want to get one. And we'll call this a class, so dot section. And if I console log main section, you'll notice, oh, that one says null. Let me see. S-E-C-T-I. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, I didn't have section. I had container. Losing my mind. All right. Now, notice how it's giving me this entire element here when I console log this main section. So it has looked at the index.html, and it says, hey, I'm going to get this section right here because that's what I was instructed to do. So does anybody have questions on just using a basic query selector? That's going to come into play a lot. So
do you just, like, so you can always call it by its class name, like you don't have to type in a div or something?
Yeah, so like you can just do like that dot container, and it'll work in this specific case. Or a lot of the times what they'll do is they might make a function And we might call this, oops, I just screenshot. We'll just call this character section, something like this, right? And so what they might do is they might pass in a selector where they want this to go. And then when they call this from, say, another file, like if this was a component, you would do character section, and then you would put in dot container like that. And then what we would do is we would move this main section into this function scope here. And then instead of it being dot container here, oops, that deleted a lot faster than I was expecting. You might see a pattern like this. This is actually pretty common, is we want to execute it here, but we want to define it here. So, you know, without this, nothing runs. But this also makes it so that, let's say that you had, you know, a header, and we'll say, or an ID of header, and then say you had a, footer. And we'll say, oops, an ID of footer. So we've got a header, ID header. You could even make this an ID if you wanted to. It really just depends. So if something changes on this page, you would only need to call it differently. So like if I wanted to get the header, I could just do ID header, because ID is the hashtag. And you'll notice it gets the header here. And if I wanted to get the container, which I turned into an ID, it gets the ID container. And if I want to get the footer, I can just get the footer like that. So selectors, we're literally just using CSS selectors for this. So like, you know, let's say you had a custom attribute like a data test ID, like something you might use in a testing library, which will come up in like a couple of weeks. We'll put that in there. So you can do square brackets, and then whatever's in, oops, those have to be single quotes. And that should also technically work. It should work as a query selector because it looked for data test ID footer, just like any CSS. So any CSS that you can use, you know, even fancy ones like, you know, nth child or whatever, it will work. So it runs on the same engine as a selector that you would use in CSS.
Well, thank you.
So I'll go back to, I guess we changed that to an ID. So we'll move that to an ID. So I'll do ID container, make sure I haven't broken anything.
So
and we're back to
you
setting.
can, so in CSS, you can also make like a custom value like that and select it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So like, you know, let's make a CSS file right quick. So if we did, we'll do touch index.css. So now we have a CSS file, and we'll use a data style for an example, right? So what we're wanting to do is a data style. I'll still need to connect it, but so what you're going to see is these square brackets around data style. And that allows you to do a custom property here. And we'll say with 100% height. We'll say 10 viewport heights. And then background color. I don't know. I guess Alice blue looks fine. So we'll save that and we'll connect our HTML file. So oh, what was it? Is that a link? Yeah, link CSS, and this one is just going to be oops. Index.css. So if I save this, you'll notice that we have this this box here. We select this, you'll notice that it's the footer, and we selected the data style footer here in CSS. So yet another way of doing styling. You'll find that more in larger code bases with libraries like Tailwind and things like that for overrides whenever something isn't what they want.
Okay, very cool. Thank you.
And now we have a nice Alice blue footer. Let's put something in here. Might as well. What was it? Ampersand copy. Might as well. There. It's copyrighted by me. We'll go ahead and make this a flex box. Put some flex in there, and then we'll do line items center. That should put it kind of middle of the page. There we go. Colors may clash a little bit, but that's okay. So if we have this this being called here, we're passing in just a string, so we're just representing the selector is equal to the string value of hashtag container. And it's basically the same thing as if I did quote hashtag container here, but now I can put this in more than one area. So if I wanted to do character section header, I could put it in two separate areas. So let's go into the console. You can see I can reuse this anywhere I want. Not that it makes any sense for this project, but let's say you had a navigation, for an example. You could reuse the navigation wherever you wanted, which is turning this into its own little component. So let's go back over and take a look at Rick and Morty. Now we've kind of a way of at least selecting where we want to put stuff on the page. Let's go and take a look at some of the documentation. So I'm going to make that just a hair smaller. When we're looking at the documentation, this is usually the first time you look at API documentation, it's just overwhelming. There's just so many things. So I'm going to go straight to getting all characters. If you notice, this is just a regular, normal, everyday web address. So if I go to this address, you'll notice that if you try going to that address, it's messy. What I have is I have this plugin called Json View. You can get it from the web store, JSON VUE. And what it does is it makes things not look like a wall of text. And you can kind of see, what it's supposed to look like. So what we're looking at here is what resolves from Axios. What happens when we get something from Axios. And so if we did like an Axios get, and we put in this address, the https rickandmortyapi.com/API/character, it's going to give us this object. And we can tell it's an object because it is curly braces. If it's an array, it's square braces. That's the biggest thing that you need to know is you can't map over an object. That's something super important for you to learn. But notice how we have two other items here. We've got info and results. So this would be our res.data is an object. So if we did res.data.info, this would be an object. But if we did res.data.results, in this specific case, it's an array. And this doesn't necessarily work for every single API on the planet. Every API is different. So you need to learn to take a look at what type of data is being returned by that API. And for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of copy this this entire object here, and we're going to use this in our code. So I have just copied Rick Sanchez's object, and I'm going to stick this way up at the top because I'm sure you remember that evil soccer project that you had to do a long time ago. And we're just going to call this object Rick. And I'm going to get rid of some of the stuff. So I don't need this type. I don't really care where he came from. I don't care where he's located. Having an image is kind of useful. I don't really care which episodes he was in because I don't want 100 episodes or however many that is. Don't really need to know his URL. Created's kind of nice to know, I guess. Not that we're going to use anything, but let's just do something like console log, and we'll use backticks on this one. So we'll do Rick.name is a Rick.species, who is Rick.status. I guess we could probably put gender in here. So what this is going to do is this is going to go and put in these things into this string. So it's going to be Rick Sanchez is a human male who is alive, like that. And so if I save this and go back over here, you can see Rick Sanchez is a human male who is alive. And we haven't run any Axios or anything else, but we're already accessing this object here. So what we might do is show a quick character array, and we will copy this, and we'll grab Morty, I guess. So Morty is ID number 2. Right here. And we'll do the same thing with him. So like we don't care about the URL. Get rid of that comma. So I don't care about all these episodes that he's in. Probably want an image. Don't really care about a location. Don't care about his origin. And I don't care what his type is. So the other way that we can access this information is by mapping over our character array here. So notice we've got an array. So we can either map or for each. So let's do a for each. So we're going to do character array.forEach. Because this character array is an array, because it's got square brackets, we can for each over it. So we'll just, I don't know, character object, and this is a callback. So this is literally just an arrow function. And so what for each is doing is it's going to get each one of these elements. So this one or this one, and it's going to set it to be character object until there's no more characters to go through. So it's going to loop through twice since there's only two things there. So what we might do is copy this and paste it. And then we're just going to change all of these instances of Rick to be character object. We're going to save it. So now it's going to loop over this, and whatever is in the character object dot name, it's going to say the exact same sentence. So let's go back over here. And so the first time that it ran this console log on 37, where it did Rick Sanchez is a human male who's alive. And this was off of the object called Rick at the top. And then we decided to do character array.forEach, which gave us basically a loop where it gives us our objects. And we did the exact same thing, but instead of using Rick.name, we're just using whatever's in here. So like if we change character object to something else, like, I don't know, character or something, it doesn't matter what we put in there. You could put banana. Banana.name is a banana.species, and it'll go through it just the exact same way. So actually, I'm thinking about doing that. Let's use banana because I can. So this is just a banana word, and it's defined on that first line. B-A-N-N-A. Geez, I can't spell it, whatever. And there we go. All right, cool. So it doesn't matter what you put in here. You could put props as far as you need, but it doesn't matter. It's just an object. So we're accessing that. So this is kind of the same exact format that we're going to be expecting. So these are the two types of data that we might get back from an API call, an object and an array. So for right now, I'm just going to comment these out. And I'm just going to get rid of the test thing. And let's look at adding in Axios on something that doesn't have npm. So if I do npm space Axios, and I go to the npmjs.com page with Axios, you're going to see that there's other ways of doing it other than npm I Axios, which is, it's not a mess. It's just a lot easier if we have something that's a web server that's doing it. And right now it's going to take some time to do that. So what we can do is we can select one of these two. I'm going to do the shorter one because why not? I'm just copying this and I am pasting this right at the top, right here of my scripts. So what this is doing is this is giving me access to Axios in my index.js script. and we're putting this into the HTML file. So I'm going to close out of the CSS file. So if I come up here to our Rick and Morty API and grab this rickandmortyapi.com/API character, and I do Axios.get, and I pass in a string with that. And
you just did by copying and pasting that into the index HTML, is it the same as doing the npm install for your JSON?
basically, yes. Because I don't have, this doesn't have like a big node project. There's no package JSON in here. So by me doing npm I, it would be making a package JSON, and I still wouldn't be able to access it until I did some extra stuff, which would just add hours to this. So I'm using a shortcut by just dropping the script in here. But typically you'll want to do the npm I Axios in future projects, or I don't think that you're going to need it tomorrow, but you never know. I'm not allowed to tell you one way or the other, but if your package JSON doesn't have it, that just says that you probably should install it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So what's going to happen is when this thing gets, we're going to need a then statement. So the then statement is going to say, once when this gets, then do this. So inside of here, this is going to take a callback, and whatever comes back, we're going to store in this res here. So res is just result or whatever, and I'm just lazy and don't want to type it all out. And so we're just going to console log res. And yes, most of the time it's just res.data, and that's the data that you want, but sometimes you got to dig a little deeper. So we're going to look here at res. Notice how this is now our only thing that we're console logging on the entire page is inside of this Axios. So here we have status 200, okay, headers, config, you know, a bunch of stuff that I don't care about, a bunch of stuff that I don't care about, a bunch of stuff that I don't care about. Yeah, don't care about that. Status 200. Okay. Let's see what 200 is. So we'll do that. What was it? http.cat? I'm almost afraid. So 200. Okay. So there's our 200. Okay. Right. All right. So we get a status code of 200. But what we're really interested in is res.data. So this looks like more interesting. So we've got this info and results. So let's just do res.data. We'll save that. So that got rid of all of the other stuff that we weren't really caring about. We've got two paths that we can go down. We can either go down info and get our however many pages there are and however many characters there are, what the next page of data looks like. Previous page, right now there is no previous page because we're on page 1. So I think I'm more interested in this results array here. So notice how we're at res.data because we console logged res.data here. If we go to res.data.results here, this is an array. So we'll go ahead and save that. So now this is looking a little more like something that we can do a for each on, right? So we've got square brackets around here, and there's 20 objects of stuff. So let's copy this over. So instead of character array, let me just move this down. In a little bit. sensitive character array. This is going to be res.data.results. Because this was that array that we were looking for. Again, you can't map or for each over something that's an object. You can map over an array. So literally we're using the exact same for each with the banana and everything in here. And it's giving us this information. So this string in here that we're console logging, this right here is effectively a component. It's a console log component, but each time that it gets a new loop off of res data results, it's going to output everybody's name here. So if I go in here, you can see Rick Sanchez is human male, Morty, Summer, Beth, Jerry, can't pronounce it. That's Aberdorf Linkler. That is a funny episode. Albert Einstein's dead. You know, the whole thing. So it shows 20 of these items have been looped over. So, and all of this stuff is still just JavaScript. We haven't done any DOM manipulation or anything. So Axios doesn't have anything to do with, oh, it needs to display it to the screen. It's just going to get information and store it somewhere. In this case, it's storing it in res. And remember that res cannot be accessed outside of then. Okay. And then you should also be putting a catch. So the catch happens if something breaks, and you can just do, you know, something like whoops, something went wrong is fine. And so like if you do something like that, and you know, that's obviously not a real website, or at least I hope not. And I save it, you'll notice that it says, whoops, something went wrong. And it gives you an error name not resolved in our GET request. And it's got all kinds of stuff in there.
Brian, can I ask you a question about
Sure.
catch? I noticed many people would put like error there, like error.message.
Yeah.
Where that comes from? Is it like built-in function, something?
Yeah, so like they do have something like this where you could do error, and then you can put it in here. And so whatever breaks, it's going to pass that data to this variable, and then you can access it anywhere inside of this scope.
And where that error message comes from? Is it from the server?
It comes from Axios. And so Axios is, if it can't reach something, it means that there's nothing there. It depends on what it is. So in this case, you know, it says network error, response. Let's see if we can go through and see status. Status is 0. Don't know what status 0 is. Basically, it's a 404 is what we're expecting, but I don't feel like digging through this to try to find exactly.
No, it's okay. I was just like just having an idea what it is.
Yeah. So in this specific case, it says, hey, this thing doesn't exist. And this error name not resolved is saying there's something is wrong on our end.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if we go back to Rick and Morty and I save it, then it's no longer throwing that error. Any other questions?
No, that's it so far. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So now let's make it so it can do something interesting. So I'm going to make a card generator. So we're going to do character card. We're going to set this equal to an arrow function. So new variable character card, set it to an arrow function, and we're just going to call this, I don't know, what do you guys think we should call this? Say character object or character, yeah, character object.
Yeah, character object is cool.
Yep. That's fine. It's a nice long word. So what we can do is I'm going to move this console log up a little bit into the character card, and then I'm just going to comment it out for right now.
How do you select and move stuff?
So if I'm on this line, and since I'm on a PC, I use Alt. If you're on a Mac, I believe it's Option.
Option.
With big question marks, and I can just go up arrow and down arrow on the keyboard, and it'll move it wherever you want.
I did not know that. Did you do you select it before?
Oh, you can. If you want to do multiple lines like these, you can select it and go up and down.
Just
or
hold
if,
Alt.
Yeah, or if you're just on one, you just you don't have to select it. You just have to be on the line.
Oh wow, cool.
So all those neat VS Code tricks that they have in there that make your life a lot simpler.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we are going to call our banana object in here. Well, we're not going to call the banana. We're going to call character card, and then as a parameter, we're going to pass in banana. So we're going to run character card and pass in banana. So banana is the word that we called it here. So you can call it George if you want. This is your name right here. This is all you. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it I wouldn't recommend it, but whatever. But so we've got character card George for whatever reason. And George is going to be passed in and accessed as if it's named character object in here because, well, it's more semantic and I want to. So if I just console log character object, we're going to get 20 objects with no array inside of here. You notice we've got 20 objects with no array. Well, this is us console logging it here. So I'm just going to take that out of the picture for right now. So now we've got 20 objects, no array this time because I messed up and didn't remove my console log. And as you can see, this is just the same stuff that we had before. So, name Rick Sanchez is a human male who is alive. It's all still there. So it's the exact same stuff that we were doing before, but now all we're doing is we're calling this card here. We're not appending child or anything else. So if you notice, every time that I'm passing something into a function, anytime that I have a function here, so like here's another function, I'm effectively just console logging out what I want from the data that's coming in. So I can look at this object and know exactly what I want in here. So let's make something really simple. So if we were to do let's make this an article. So we'll do document.create element, and we're going to call this an article. So now we have this article that has been created. Let's return it. So what this return is doing is when this is run, when we invoke character card with this information, George is passed in, George becomes character object. We console logged it. We made a new article element and we returned it. So when we return it, it's now going over here into nothing land. Nothing has happened. You know, it hasn't done anything. What happens if we just console log what comes out of character card George, for example? We can see that it's an article. Well, if we go back over to elements, you can see we didn't put any articles inside of the section. So what we want to do is use this main section in Append Child. So instead of console logging this, what we're going to do is we're going to do main section, which is that first thing that we started with today, which is that query selector. So now main section, we want to append child. So if we Google this, notice how it says node append child, and it's got these parentheses. That says that it's a method. Yep, it's a method. So because of that, whatever we pass into append child, in other words, this article that's going to come back from character card, it's going to append it to main section. And since it's looping over all of that data, we're going to get 20 articles. There's not going to be any data in them, but there's going to be 20 of them here. So if I open this up, you'll notice there's 20 articles-ish. So something else that for each has is this wonderful thing called an index. So the second variable that can be passed down is an index. We can also pass that in to our character card. And we can kind of tell which article we're on. We can even make it so that we can access this. So I've passed in George an index. Let's, we're just going to call this as well. So we're going to call that index also. But let's start putting a class on here. So we're going to do, what was it for the class list? So we're going to look at element.classList. So an example of this is, let's see if we got this. Yeah, so you've got a class list toggle, class list add right here, all this nice stuff. Class list, and class list has a method called add. So we should be able to put in whatever we want. So we've got class list character 1 is what we want. So we can just put in our index in here. So I've passed in two separate things into here, an object and a number. So this is going to make character 1, 2, 3, 4, however many characters there are. Oh, wrong one. So if I open up this section, you can see character 0, character 1, character 2, etc. And it'll always be character 0 through 19, no matter how many pages we put on there. Nice.
Where it takes the index from, is it like counting the characters on its own, or it pulls it from the API?
It's pulling it from this for each. So the for each is going to give you two pieces of information, the object, in this case, we just called it George, and where it is in that array.
I see. So it's going to start from 0 then.
Yes. And then we're just passing it in so that we can see it in character card. So that's all fine and good. We still need to make, you know, an actual component. So let's start with something basic again, like maybe a header. So we'll do we'll just call this the card header. It's going to be document.create element, and we're going to make this an H2. So now what we can do is we can append this to our article, because we want this to be a child of article, and we can append this anytime we want and modify it, and it should be fine. So we'll do we're going to do article.append child, and we're going to pass in our card header. So if I save this and I start looking at this, we're going to go back into our container, open up our article, and notice we've got an H2. There's no data in there. So what we can do is we can put some text content in there. So this will be card header. And we're going to do text content. And one of the things that you'll notice is this will come up and it'll say it's a property instead of a method. So a method you're going to be calling, you know, with your parentheses. With a property, you're going to be setting it with an equal sign. So that's one of the easier things. You can even look it up, JS text content. And if you click in here, it will even tell you it's a property instead of a method. So those are kind of little hints on what requires an equal sign and what requires a parentheses. And we'll just put this as character object dot name. So now if I save this, I go back over here, now we have a list of all these names and they're all H2s. So if I open up our container, our first article, you can see Rick Sanchez is right here. We've got, well, 20 of them. So we're using the API to give us 20 things so that we don't have to type all this out. So literally I just made 20 cards, and we're going to make it a little more interesting here in a second. 20 cards with, you know, all this junk at the top as well. So was it minus 30 lines in 36 lines. So I did 20 components in 36 lines. Let's put an image in here. So here's our image. Let's go ahead and append it to the article. We're going to append child card image. And we can check to make sure that it's in here by just drilling down. You can see there's an image tag with nothing in it. So the two things that we need for an image are going to be a source and an alt. So easiest way to do that is just to do card image. Nope, not card header. Image dot source, because this is one of the properties, one of the attributes of card image, and we're just going to do this as character object dot name. Oh, sorry, image. I believe that was card image, or let me look at the console. So I can look at one of these objects here. We'll just take Rick for an example. And yeah, it's image.image. And the next thing that we're going to want is the card image .alt. And this is for people who can't see the image. So you want something descriptive that doesn't say photo or image or whatever. So I usually would just say whatever's in that image. In this case, it's their name. So because that's descriptive of who's in that image. So now if I save this, now we've got something more interesting. A lot more interesting. Oh, they pulled antenna Rick. Oh well. Ants in my eyes, Johnson. Poor guy. All right. So lastly, remember that little console log up here, right? What if we wanted to make that a p tag instead? So we'll do const. We'll say card paragraph. Create element. We're going to put a p tag in there. So we'll go ahead and append it. Check, make sure it's there. So we'll go back over to elements. So open up container, character. You'll notice we got that, that paragraph tag here. It's not doing anything, but it's there. So if I wanted to do card paragraph and put some text content in it, we could just kind of do this. Get rid of all of our bananas and turn them back over to, and this is the Alt key or the Option key in this as well. So you can do multiple cursors by holding out Alt and clicking. So this one was character object. Did I break it? I think I broke it. Let's take a look at the console. Whoops, something was wrong. Text content is not a function. Did I misspell it? Oh. Whoops, I need to equal. There. So now you've got Rick Sanchez is a human male who is alive. Morty Smith is a human male who is alive. Human female who is alive. Let's go down to somebody who's an alien. Here we go. Can't pronounce it. Cluster Princess is an alien female who is alive. We don't know if he's dead or alive. This guy's dead. That kind of stuff. So, yeah, this guy's we don't know if he's dead or alive. Stuff like that. So what it says is that it's pretty simple to do it this way, where you're saying, hey, I want to have this as, you know, put some documentation in here. This is the parent component. We'll say child component, or we'll say element. Sounds a little more correct than component. And then we'll do another one for Okay, so the last thing is that we probably still want to be able to say style this in some way. So let's do another. We'll do a class list add, and we'll do I don't know, character card. There we go. That sounds pretty official. And we'll do card header, class list add. And this one would probably be a good card header. And then we might do another one for card image, class list add. We might do a card image. Seeing a pattern here. Card paragraph, class list, add, and we'll do, I guess, a card. So if I save this, and we take a look at our elements, now we have stuff that we can actually access pretty easily with the CSS file. So we can style this and make it look where it's not like phone mode all the time. So we've got card header, character card, class card image, class card paragraph. So those are all things that we can access pretty easily. So yeah, let's put a little bit more information in here and make it look prettier. So, oops. Let's start off with our character card. So since this is a class, we can just do character. And we'll display flex. Ooh, that made it even worse. Check that out. That's pretty horrible. We don't want the character card to be there, to be flexed like that. Or maybe not. But maybe we want the container to be flexed. So let's do that instead. So let's do, we'll do container where it's flexed. All right, so now this is now side scroll land. That's not good. Let's do a flex wrap wrap. Okay, so that's sort of better. It's mildly responsive, but still looks horrible. We'll do justify content, space evenly. Yeah, I didn't have to add margin or anything. Only every once in a while when it's exactly that, does it look horrible. Maybe we'll add a little bit of margin on that. So we'll do, that's going to be on the child component. So this is where we're going to get into that. I already forgot what I called it. Character card. Wow, looking. So character card is one of these individual cards inside of here. So notice how we have like this one. All that area in blue is, well, it's in blue. So maybe we'll put a little bit of padding instead of margin. So we'll do padding and we'll do one rim around everybody. So now this will go like that. So there's always a little tiny bit of space around them. Yeah. And if we wanted to access, say, card image and then do border radius 50%, I'll make it nice and round. Maybe we should display flex. And change the flex direction. All right. So now that we've changed the flex direction, notice how I want to make these so that they're in the center. So Rick Sanchez is directly above instead of to the left. Does anybody remember when you switch to a column, what happens to your between justify content and align items? They get swapped. You guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do align items center. And that should align them horizontally and make them a little prettier. So let's do one for the header right quick. This won't take long. I'm just going to pass in a couple of things into our header component. So let's say that okay, so we're not really using any of this anymore, so I can get rid of that. So we've got character card, we've got container section, and we're starting everything from here. So if we did a function called header section, and I did pass in a string called header, which is coming from right here. So this ID header is hashtag header. So if I do a new variable called header section, oops, header section, and I set this to a function, arrow function in this case, and we have a selector like that. Remember what we did up here where we just had this line here. I can just copy this to make things faster. And instead of it being main section, we can just call this, I don't know, header. Sounds good to me. So let's imagine that I have a navigation of some sort. So maybe we and we'll pass in items for an example. Or we'll just do item 1, item 2, and item 3, something like that. So we'll do I'm going to show you a different thing that you can do. So we'll say the first one is home. Characters, and we'll say contact us. So these aren't going to be live, so I'm not too worried about it. But this is kind of a pattern that you'll sometimes see, but it might be an object that you're passing in instead of a string. But this will be a nice, easy way of getting something else on the page that looks pretty, I guess. So what we might do is start off with a document create element, and we're probably going to call this a nav. And so we're going to need to save that somewhere. and we're going to return that. So we've called this navigation. It's returning us a new element called nav, but it's not putting it anywhere. So again, this is where we do our header append child navigation. So if I save this, let's see if I broke it. Console at index.js 52. Oh, I forgot the arrow function here. There we go. So if I go back into here and I look at my elements and I look at my container, oh, sorry, not the section, the header, you'll notice that we have a nav. It's the same thing that we were doing before. And let's say that we put in we'll say link 1 is going to be equal to document.create element. And we're just going to put this as an anchor tag of some sort. Now we can put in our text content into that anchor tag. And we're going to set this equal to item 1. Oh, and we also need to attach it to our nav. So nav append child. So we're going to have a link as a child of nav. And you can see we have a home link here. If I inspect this, you'll notice we have an anchor tag. It's not anchoring to anything. There's no href or anything. But now I can probably just kind of make 2 more of these. So we'll do three. This will be a 2. If I save that, now we've got home characters, contact us. There's not a lot of styling here. We'll put in kind of those same notes here. So we'll say here an element for navigation, and we'll say and if we were to put in some href in here, I'm just going to do a hashtag so that it has some place to go. Change these up. All right, so now these should be anchor tags that are clickable and they go nowhere. So they literally just go to there, the little hashtag at the end. So let me take a peek right quick. So if we wanted to add in some styling to these, we might add in a class. So we'll do a class and call this a nav link. Now when I inspect this, I now have something that I can write some CSS against because we've got a class of navlink. So we'll go, this footer actually needs to go to the bottom. Losing people left and right, huh? We've got the original two. Scared everybody off. You guys are the brave ones. Any questions so far?
No.
We're only an hour and a half in. Has this helped any so far?
I definitely
Yes.
learned a lot. Yes.
Excellent.
Very helpful so far. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're very welcome. There's going to be a little bonus section at the end that we're going to make a harder to deal with object, and it may require me to think of something hard to do. So this will be much harder than what you're expecting, which is good. But it's a good challenge. So on this one here, we're trying to do a class list of navlink. So since this is in above here, we're going to do .navlink, and this is going to be, say, well, actually, it's probably not going to be navlink that we're worried about the styling on. This one's probably just going to be our header first. We're going to do display flex, and space between. Maybe we need to do a width on this. Oh wait, no, it was the nav, wasn't it? Sorry, I'm losing my head. So nav doesn't have anything that we can do. So let's do a nav classless add, and we're going to do here, navigation. Sounds good. So instead of this being header, we're going to do this as navigation. So if I'm looking at this and I'm selecting our class navigation. Oh, I need to do a dot navigation, don't I? This is, here we go. There we go. So now we've got space between. That doesn't look right. Let's look at space around. That looks a little bit more normal. So what we might do is, for the next ones, is I don't really like that purple and blue, depending on if you've clicked on it thing. That's not a big deal, but just don't really like it. So we'll do the navigation. And say the anchor tag under navigation. Yeah. So we'll change the color to be black. No, actually, let's make this more interesting. So we'll, oh, background. White. Maybe the that's looking a little bit better. Text transform capitalize is a nice one. It just capitalized all these from lowercase. Another good one would be text decoration none, because I don't want it to be underlined. So now we've got home, characters, contact us. And what I might do is add a little padding around here. So top and bottom, I might want 1 rem, or sorry, 0.5 rem, and left and right 1 rem. All right. So what we can do now is we can do a hover. And make it so that the background color turns to white, color black. So now if I hover over these, they should change color. Kind of nice. Let's do a little border radius of say 0.5 rem. Sounds good to me. Making this up as we go along. Yeah, see, that looks pretty decent. Not a designer, obviously, but you kind of get the point. Okay. Any questions on the super basic styling that I came up with off the top of my head? No questions. Cool. Okay, so harder stuff. So on the harder stuff, I'm going to do something a little different. So I'm going to make another file. harderstuff.js. And I'm going to put in a console log in here. Harder stuff. Save it, and then we're going to add it to our scripts here. Oops. And again, we're deferring it so it runs last. And so if I go back over here and I look at my console, you'll notice we have harder stuff here. So we know that it's connected. That's the biggest thing. So if in doubt where nothing's working, console log and see where you're at. Just, it doesn't even have to be data. You just see if it works. Even if it says, hey, don't modify this file, nobody's going to know if you don't send it back up. If you get rid of that console log before anybody sees. So don't be afraid to throw a console log just to make sure something's connected right. So we're going to do a harder object. So what if I wanted to, and this is all just going to be like console logs because it's the same thing. The implementation of a component is the exact same thing. Let's say that we have an object, and we're going to say this is going to be types, because I can call it whatever I want. And this is going to be an object, not an array. So if you if you'll notice on this API here, you've got these species, right? Human, 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 alien. But yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff. So let's say human is an array, right? So this is inside of an object. And so we can have objects inside of an array. So you can see we've got this here. And then we've got Brian and Zorp. Those are the two things that we have in here. So we've got a human and one alien. So let's say that I wanted to generate a list of all humans and all aliens in this case, or everything that is one of these types. I guess we'll say species. Here we go. So we'll do species, and we'll put another one in here called canine, or we could just do canine. And we'll use my old dog, not with me anymore, but why not? Diesel. He was a golden retriever. Very nice dog. So now what we're going to be able to do is I want to loop over species. You can't loop over an object, but you can get their keys and turn that into an array. So this is something that's a little different. And let's do something like all objects, I guess. So when we look at this object, you have a key of human, a key of alien, a key of canine, and then all of these are values of arrays, right? So all of these values you could loop over. So, let's say that, we have another dog, say Susie, right? So we can loop over all of this information, but we want to do this in one swoop without having to manually type in, say, console log species human array element 0, for example. So if we were to try to do that, let me remove this console log in index.js. Notice how by me doing on harder stuff, by me doing species.human element 0, we're getting Brian. I could also put all of these in here because we don't want to type all this stuff out. So you can see Brian, Zorp, Diesel, Susie. So this is what we wanted to print out, is just a quick list of these 4 things. And So what I might do is I might get a list of these keys here and then loop over those keys, accessing them directly by replacing this. That's one way to do it. So if I go back over to our favorite search engine, you can look up object keys JS. So notice how there's this object.keys in JavaScript. So here's an object with A, B, C, and A is equal to some string, B is equal to 42, and C is equal to false. So we're going to console log object keys object1. So object keys, capital O. And we're going to do species instead of object1 because, well, we don't have an object1. So we're going to do object.keys, and then we're going to do species. And I'm going to console log all objects. Save that. Now, when we're looking at this, notice how this is now an array. So we can loop over that. Human, alien, canine. Okay, that works out really well. So now that that is an array, we can run a for each or a map or whatever we want on it. And we'll just say objects, why not? Or a single object actually might make more sense. So this is the name that we're going to give it, kind of like me using banana. And let's just console log. Instead of object, we already know it's an object. It's human or alien or canine. But let's do species dot object. I'm gonna have to use something other than object. We're gonna say there we go, whatever. It still doesn't like it. Something's going on. I've got something wrong with my syntax. Let me go. It says undefined 3 times. Well, let's console log keys of the object and figure out what's going on then. Oh, I know. Duh. So we do have human, alien, and canine, but you can't directly access your species with a dot notation. You're going to want to do square bracket notation for that. So this is going to be putting in the string value that's coming from keys of object into the dot. So I know that we covered that, I think, in the second week of Unit 1. Pretty sure. But now you can see that we have an array. And now that we have another array, we can loop over that array. So actually, we'll just do species. We're looping over what's inside of this here. guess we could probably say array is fine here, since we're expecting an array to be in there. So keys of object, whoops, I've got one. Oops. I'm actually gonna remove that console log. So now you remember how I had to manually go through and do Brian, Zorp, Diesel, Susie, and then we console logged out what our object keys were. We use these object keys here to get our object name. And you could actually do object.name if you wanted to and just get a list of names. Brian, Zorp, Diesel, Susie. Now I know you guys have questions. But this is one of the harder things that you might run into in the near future. All right, I'm going to stop recording right quick.